What's up, crafters? It's Sabrina with Mindcrafts by Sabrina, where our crafts are anything but square. Today I'm so excited to share with you how to use the Draw feature to color in your images with the Cricut machine. I'll show you how to do it in Inkscape and Design Space. I have two methods to share with you. Before we get started, if this is the first time to my channel, I do want to welcome you. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button so you can get notified the next time I post some content. Method 1. In Inkscape, we'll do a hatch fill. A hatch fill is a zigzag continuous path that fills in your image. Open a new document in Inkscape, drag and drop your file, and then select OK on the import menu. So in order to do a hatch fill, your file needs to be in an SVG format. So we'll go ahead and use Inkscape in order to convert our file. We'll trace bitmap, do OK, break it apart, change my opacity so that I can see it, and then I'm going to select each layer and apply a color. On the layers that have more than one layer, you can select path and union to weld those layers together. On the layer that requires slicing, you can select all of those images and then go to path and exclusion and it will slice it. Now, I do have a more in-depth tutorial on my page. I suggest you watch that if you don't know how to convert your images, because in order to do your hatch fill, you will need to start with an SVG file. So now that our image is in a cut path, we need to create that fill pattern. Now, this isn't a technical term, but it is how I'm going to refer to it. A hatch fill is a pattern that is a continuous zigzag path that fills the entire image. Now note, this is very, very important. Before you go to the next step and create your fill, you need to size your project to your intended size. So let's say at the end you wanted to color in and cut a 5-inch cupcake, then you need to size it to 5 inches before you create your fill pattern. This is important because that pattern is going to be the path that your marker takes. So if your lines are too far apart, your marker lines are not going to touch. And if they're too close, then your marker line will continuously cover over the same section multiple times. So first we're going to select one image at a time, and we're going to duplicate that layer by hitting Control-D on the D-pad or right-click and hit Duplicate. The duplicate is going to be completely on top of your image, so you're going to just move it over to the side so that we can see our work. We're going to select that image again, and then we're going to duplicate it again. After you duplicate it, change the color to black. So one of the copies is going to turn black. Then on your keyboard, hit Control-Shift-7 or go to the Path menu and select Path Effects. This is going to open a Path Effects menu on the right-hand side. From this menu, we're going to click on the Add Path Effects button. It's going to open a menu and you're going to select Hatches and then click on Add. The Hatches menu is now going to appear under the Path Effects menu on the right-hand side. So in the Hatches menu, we're going to set frequency randomness to 0. Then we're going to uncheck the Bend Hatches button. Now this controls the curvature of your lines. Then we're going to set the magnitude jitter first side to 0. This is going to align your pattern at the bottom. Then we'll set the second side to 0, and this is going to align your pattern at the top. Under Generate Thick or Thin Path, we're going to set each thickness to a 0.20, and this is just going to control how thick and how thin your path is. While selected on your image, on your keyboard, press F2 or select the Edit Nodes Path button on the left menu. The nodes that pop up, the yellow diamond node is the bend node. This allows you to control how straight or curved the lines are going to be. But this shouldn't be affected since we turned this off by unchecking that bend box. The green diamond node is the direction and spacing node. So this is going to allow you to change the direction of the lines to be either vertical or horizontal or diagonal. And it's also going to allow you to decrease or increase the space in between each line. The yellow and green circles are simply just reference points. The gray nodes around your image are your cut path. First, I'm going to select the yellow node button. This is our bend node. Notice when I move it, nothing happens. That's because we unchecked that box. When I turn it on, you can see the curvature comes back and I'm able to control that curvature. I want them straight, so I'm going to uncheck that. Now let's grab the direction node, which is the green one, and if you adjust it by moving it in and out and around, then you can rotate and change the direction of your lines to be vertical or horizontal or angled, and then you can also change that spacing in between each line. After you've filled it the way you want, you're going to select the Path menu and select Object to Path, and this is going to give you your cut line so that you can bring it into Design Space. So now that's it. Your fill is complete. Now you just need to repeat this process with each color that you want to fill in. Again, we're going to repeat the process by clicking on Duplicate, move your image over, click on Duplicate one more time. This time we're going to change it to black so we can see it. Go to Path and select Path Effects. Click on Add and click Hatches and Add. In your Hatches menu, we're going to change our settings to frequency 0, jitter side 1 and 2 to 0, uncheck your bend hatches, and then on your path thicknesses, you're going to set all of those to 0.20. On your keyboard, you're going to select the F2 button again, or click on the Edit Nodes Path button on the left-hand side. Then you're going to select your green node icon and just move it around to adjust your fill pattern. After you've adjusted your fill pattern, you're going to go to the path and select Object to Path. This is changing your pattern from being a path effect to being an actual path, like a cut path for Cricut to follow. So I'll show you one more time. We're going to go ahead and select our image and right-click Duplicate. Move that image over, duplicate it again, change the color. Because we've already done this a few times, we don't need to hit Path menu. We'll go ahead and in that menu, click on Add Hatches. In your Hatches menu, go ahead and change your settings, frequency 0, uncheck bend hatches. Your magnitude jitter 1 and 2 are going to be set to 0. Generate thick or thin paths are all going to be set to 0.020. And then on your keyboard, you're going to select F2 or click on your Edit Nodes button in order to get your nodes. Now you want to go ahead and adjust that node icon in order to fill up your image. Once you're complete, you're going to select Path and click on Object to Path. Now that you're done, you'll go ahead and save this or repeat to the next layer. For the outline, I'm going to do an inset. So it's like a shadow, but reverse. So I'm going to duplicate my image and move it over, duplicate my image again and change the color. I'm going to go to the Path menu and select on Inset, and then it's going to make a smaller version of my outline. You can also do Control 9 instead of going to Path and Inset. Now I'm going to be going over there in much more detail in our Inset section that we're also going to be creating these. So in Design Space, we're going to click on Upload again, and then you're going to drag and drop your file into here. When you upload your file, it's going to tell you that your pattern is not supported, and that's fine. Go ahead and click Continue anyways. Because it is an SVG, we don't need to clean it up. You're just going to click on Save, click on your image, and click Insert Image to insert it into your project. Once the image is in your project, you're going to click on your image and change the line type to Draw. Then you can right-click and select Ungroup. Now you're going to select one layer at a time and change the color of your draw pattern. This is going to be the color that it's going to fill in. You have 2 layers per group. You have your hatch fill layer, and then you have your solid base layer. And you want both of those because after it draws in or it colors in with your marker, you also wanted to have that solid line around the entire perimeter of your image. You're going to arrange all of your layers onto the base layer. Then you want to set that base layer to a line type of cut. So that way after it draws, it cuts your base. I'm going to change the color to the color that my paper is going to be as well. Then I'm going to select everything and click on Attach so that my draw lines are attached to my baseline. When you send the project to the mat, you're going to have one mat that consists of all the colors attached to that base layer. The machine is going to prompt you what color pen to insert at which point. You're going to insert the pen and you're going to click on the blinking Cricut C on your machine and then continue that process until the cut is complete. Now let's take a look at how to make a hatch fill pattern within Design Space. To create a hatch fill in Design Space, we need to upload a hatch pattern first. Now we're not going to upload it as a regular pattern, we're going to upload it as a regular image. In this case, I'm going to be using an SVG file because it's much cleaner. So I'm going to save and insert this image. The file I'm uploading is an SVG hatch path created in Inkscape. And for your convenience, I'll link it in the description below. You can also use a JPEG of a lines pattern. Now because these are lines, you can't stretch this image very much because your lines will then be too far apart. And you can't shrink it too much because then your lines will be too close together. So the best thing to do is to make a test draw, especially considering that every marker and every pen's tip is different. And that's going to require your widths to be different with each color project you create. So the best thing to do before creating your entire file is to do a test sample. In this case, I took my cherry and I created multiple fills in order to find what was the best width working with my markers. The first thing you want to do is first size your image to be the size of your final project. I can't stress this enough because remember, you can't stretch or shrink these lines once they've been created. You're going to duplicate your colored layers and move it over to the side so that it can be worked with. Working with one layer at a time, align your hatches over that layer. Now if you did a test, then your hatches will already be set to the proper width. You can stretch this file as you need to. Rotate the hatches in the direction so that the lines fill your layer as desired. You want to use the inner portions of the hatch fill because if you look closely, if you use the ends, those loops cause less lines, so your image isn't going to fill as well. After you've selected your fill, you're going to select both layers simultaneously and select Slice. You want to delete your negative images, which is one part from your color and one part from your hatches. And then you're going to select your remaining hatch layer and change it to a draw color of that layer. Continuing on with the next layer, you want to repeat the same process. Now, I didn't mention this before, but if you didn't already figure it out, after you've set up your hatch fill to the right size, then you can duplicate it a few times. That way you don't have to keep readjusting it the next time. So you'll continue your process, align your images, slice them from each other, delete those negative portions, change that final portion into a draw path, and then apply the color as desired. I'll show that to you one more time. We'll align those hatches over our layer. Once it's aligned, you want to select both layers simultaneously and select Slice. You'll go ahead and remove those negative portions and delete those off your screen. Your final portion, you want to go ahead and change that from a cut path to a draw path, and then apply the color as desired. After all your layers have been hatch filled, align all your project together. Select all of your layers and then select Attach. Go through each layer and ensure that everything is set to draw as needed. Only those layers that should cut should be set to cut. In my case, just my white base is going to cut. After everything has been confirmed, go ahead and send it to the mat. Once it's on the mat, you're only going to have one file, and it's going to have every layer attached. For method 2, we're going to go back into Inkscape and we're going to create an inset fill path. And what an inset fill is, it's just your layers are shrinking into each other in order to create that fill path. Again, when we are working in Inkscape creating our files, we need to start with an SVG file. So make sure you convert your image first. Then, before starting your insets, you need to size your project. This is so very important because the larger your image is, the more layers it's going to need to be filled. And then when it's shrunken, it's going to have way too many layers sitting on top of each other. Vice versa, if you start too small and you try enlarging it, it's not going to have enough layers, and then all those layers are going to draw far apart and it's not going to fill in your pattern. So make sure before you go to the next step, you size your image. To create your inset, you must create an inset for each color. Select your color and then duplicate that image. Move it over to the side and then zoom in so that we can work with that layer. Control duplicate again, and then this time we're going to change the color to make it visible. While selected on the image, on your keyboard press Control 9 or go to the Path menu and select Inset. Select your new layer and repeat. You see the yellow shrunk into that red. We'll repeat this control duplicate process until our entire image is full. So again, we're going to duplicate that layer, change the color, and then hit Control 9 to create that inset. Now that you've seen the process, the fastest way for me is never to leave your keyboard. Just continue to press Control D, Control 9, change your color, repeat. 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 So if you just keep doing this, it's going to create your inset, and you're just going to do this until you've created enough layers to fill all the way to your inside. When you do inset, it changes, I believe, at 1 pixel, if I read correctly. And then you would just do this until it's completely filled. Once it's filled, you'll save your image or repeat this for the next color. Select your next color, duplicate it, move it over and zoom in so that we can see it. And then you'll go ahead and continue that process where you're going to Control D, Control 9, select your color, and repeat. And you'll continue Control D, Control 9, select your color, and repeat. Now, you don't need to select the color. The reason why I select the color is because it helps me see what my layers are doing. I'm able to see, is it really filling? Do I miss anything? Am I getting good coverage? Also, when you hit Control D and Control 9, you can do it simultaneously. So you don't have to do Control plus D and Control plus 9. You can simply do Control D 9. So a 3-step keystroke. Control D 9 and then change the color. After you've done all of that, you want to select all of your colors, change it into one solid color, and then click on the Object and Group. This way, you can group all of those together, so when you bring it into DS, it's not a bunch of layers just separated. I'll show it to you one more time. We're going to duplicate that image, zoom in so we can see, and then we're going to repeat the process of duplicating, creating our inset, and changing the color. Again, you're going to duplicate, Control D, Control 9 to inset, and change your color. A few more times, Control D to duplicate, Control 9 to inset, and then change your color. Repeating this process until the entire image is filled. Again, at the end, you're going to select your entire image of your insets, change the color so that it's all one color, and then select all, go to Object menu, and select Group. So when you bring it into DS, it's all one solid group. Once your file is ready, save and upload it into DS. Insert it into your project, align and size your project as desired. Select all and attach it to hold it in place. Change your line type to draw. Then select one color group at a time and apply the draw color. Repeat these steps for all your layers until every layer has its color applied. Then you want to make sure that your base is set to cut. So go through all your layers after it's been attached to make sure everything that should be drawn is drawn and everything that should be cut is cut. This process has a lot of layers, so it may be a little bit more laggy, and depending on your image and depending on your size, it may have a lot more layers than Cricut can possibly handle. Send it off to the mat, and when it's on the mat, you're going to see that it's one layer with all of your colors on that one layer. Here are some examples of each method used. The Inkscape hatches was the most filling, where I got the most coverage, but it also gave too much coverage in some areas, causing the paper to rip. The Inkscape Inset gave good coverage, but because it only covers each line one time, it left the image kind of light in some areas. Design Space hatches seem to be the best coverage, I think. It also, and as far as timing is concerned, the Inkscape hatches and Design Space hatches both took 22 minutes to draw, whereas the Inkscape Inset project only took 18 minutes to draw. Well, guys, that's all I have for you today, but we did cover a lot of information, so I hope it was helpful. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can be notified of the next content. If this was helpful to you, please help me out by sharing it with one of your crafter friends and hashtag quarantine training.